Now we talk about another type of system software, that is a text editor. A text editor is a tool that allows the user to create and revise the document in the computer. So this task can be carried out in other modes, like what text editor is there, commonly refers to as tool does interactively. Earlier, computer documents is used to be primarily plain text document, but nowadays, due to the improved input-output mechanism and the file format, a document frequently contains pictures along with the text whose appearance is different, that is size and color and text and styles can be varied within the document. So apart from the proceedings output such as wide variety, text editors in today's provides many advantage features, interactive outputs to us. Okay, and now the next topic is a program translator, because from the generation of the language, you understood there are different generations of language available, that is high level language and low level language. In case of low level language, it's a assembly language or machine language actually, are the streams of the zeros and ones, so it is no need to translate it. But in case of higher level language, it is more like a human language, like in English. So computer only understands the forms of binary only. So this kind of a high level language code and need to be translated so that machine can understand. The first of all that is we need, that is assembler. An assembler translate a program written in an assembly language into a machine language and is an efficiently a compiler for assembly language, but it can also be used to interactively like interpreter. Assembly language is a low level programming language. Low level programming languages are less like human languages, and they are more difficult to understand at a glance. You have if you study, they are using the mnemonics over here. So mnemonics is difficult to understand the symbolical format. So an assembler converts the assembly language code into machine code, okay, and lower level language that a processor can directly understand. Okay, and in case of interpreter, another way to get a code to run on your processor is using an interpreter, which is not the same as a compiler. An interpreter translates the code like a compiler but reads the code and immediately execute it on that code, and therefore initially faster than the compiler. The interpreter are often used in the software development tools such as debugging tool. So as they can execute a single in a code at a time, the compiler translates code at all once, and the processor then executes upon the machine languages, and then the compiler is produced. So if changes are made in the code after compilation, the changed code will be need to be become compiled and then added to the compiler code. Okay, so in case of in interpreter, although the skipping of steps of compilation of an entire program is to start is much slower to execute than the same program. Okay, so now come back to the compiler. There's interpreter concept, like literally meaning who is the interpreter. Like we need an interpreter for the German. If you are having any business with the German, you cannot speak in the German language. So that point of time you need an interpreter who can translate your English or Bengali in whatever language you are speaking or are comfortable into a German, and from the German person he heard the German and he can translate into your comfortable language. So the interpreter is something like this. An interpreter actually try to fix your error, and by each line they will search each line to make it a error free. Okay, but compiler will compile your program as a whole and then show you the error. So the compiler converts high level language code to machine level language, or it is known as object code, in one session. So compilers can take a while because they have translated the high level code to lower level machine language all at once. So then save the executable object codes to the memory. A compiler creates a machine code that runs on a processor with a specific instruction and set architecture, that ISA. So which a processor is dependent. It's a processor dependent. So So after compiling a code, you cannot say that this you have compiled the program in this, and you can compile this code can be using another compiler you can use, because if the processor is different, the architecture is different, it cannot work. Because in some cases, if I can give you an example, the getch is works in the turbo C type of compiler, but in other compiler it cannot work. So return 0 in a broadline sense it will work. So this kind of a thing is happening. Okay, so the majorly the question is comes as a short question from here, the that is what is assembler, what is interpreter or compiler, or they can ask you the difference between the interpreter and the compiler. It's a very common question. So you prepared this very well. These are actually operating system, text editor, assembler, interpreter and a compiler are basically examples of the system software. There are many more. Okay, we can discuss it later. Thank you, students.